This is the Nightshade Cult, a podcast macabre.
We bid you welcome, enter freely and of your own will.
I'm Nick Grimm.
And I'm David Graves.
We'll be your horror hosts for this dissection of F.W. Murnau's 1922 German expressionist gothic horror, Nosferatu, a Symphony of Horror, also known as Nosferatu, ein Symphonie des Grauens.
Good evening.
Yeah, this is a fun one.
Yeah, it's a classic. This is, I said on our first episode that Bram Stoker's Dracula was kind of the big daddy because that's the modern generation's kind of biggest vampire movie. Mm-hmm. But man, this is the OG. This is the
OG. I'm not aware of a vampire movie that predates this.
There are ones in the 20s.
Yeah, London After Midnight is 27, I think, so 5 years after this. And of course, Browning's Dracula is in 31, so that's 9 years after this. But I think this is it. This is the OG vampire movie. And it's a good one. I mean, to me, I like Nosferatu more than I like Browning's Dracula.
Okay. I mean, I really liked this movie.
Yeah.
It's not something for a modern audience. Like we're so used to these talkies.
Yeah.
These fancy movies with like lines and dialogue rather than like literally a scene card that has writing that you have to read.
Yeah.
It's crazy different. It's like going to a play, but even lower fi than that.
Yeah. So had you ever watched a silent film all the way through before?
I have. Okay. I can't recall when, but I know I have.
Okay.
And who hasn't? If you grew up in this area and you ever went to Uncle Milt's Pizza.
Oh, yeah. They would show old silent movies.
And play the organ along with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, that was normal when you would when these movies would be screened and they'd go out, there would be sheet music provided, and the big grand picture houses will have at least a serious organist or pianist, but sometimes maybe an orchestra, and even the little rinky-dink country picture houses are going to have a local drunk uncle that can play the piano. So it was
your local drunk uncle's pianist.
Yeah. Or the church lady, right? The lady that plays the piano at church also plays the piano at the movie theater.
Oh yeah, of course. Got to make a buck.
Yeah. And so it's I don't know. I really enjoy this film, though.
Yeah, and it's worth talking about before we jump into the actual classic movie, that we talk about kind of the background behind it, because this is blatantly based on Dracula, Bram Stoker's classic novel. They reskinned it and made a couple dramatic changes, or artistic changes.
Mostly just streamlined it, cut characters.
Oh yeah,
and
made
stuff,
it faster.
and changed names and locations. Set it in Germany instead of England. As it's a German production, and that brings it closer to home.
But I mean,
they don't hide. Even in the original German credits, it says based on Dracula by Bram Stoker.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because it's the premise is so ridiculously specific. Like, a real estate agent goes to meet with an eccentric noble. Okay, yeah, it's not just some random, you know how common real estate agent stories are?
Yeah. Dracula is so specific, and I was thinking that a lot, that every movie that has followed this one has hit almost all the same beats as this movie, and more or less portrays them the same way, movie after movie. Like that, when he's not called Jonathan Harker in this, but when our Keanu Reeves character goes to the country inn or whatever.
Was it Hutter?
Hutter, yeah, yes. Hutter instead of Harker. That looks just like the same inn from Browning's Dracula. It looks like the same inn from the Hammer Dracula that Peter Cushing goes to.
Oh my God. I was like, obviously they couldn't get the same extras and stuff because it's decades apart. But yeah, it looks so similar.
Yeah. So the iconography of the Dracula film is almost all established in this movie.
Yeah.
And it has not really been strayed from for 100 years.
Because I'm a ding dong and I'm watching this movie, I'm like, oh my God, it looks exactly like the real Dracula. And then I was like, oh, no. Dracula stole from Nosferatu, who stole from Stoker.
Yeah, and the thing that tripped me out was this movie is so old, Bram Stoker's widow was still alive to sue them when it came out.
Yeah, exactly. There's like a whole drama behind that. I watched a video about it.
Yeah, that is crazy. It's almost within the lifetime of Bram Stoker that this movie comes out. And we really probably wouldn't have the 31 Dracula if she hadn't sued them for this movie, because that's what led her to look into the licensing rights. And that leads to that movie ultimately.
Yeah, it's insane, and really, it's weird how she, like there was another movie I can't remember, or another production, something that also ripped off Stoker, but she never pursued them because it was just poor. It was nothing. It was, I think it was a theatrical production that was well thought of, but still they didn't make a lot of money. But Prana Productions, the name of their production company, which is weird because that's like a clothing brand that I like.
Yeah, it's a Hindu word.
It's the same derivative.
The Prana people are interesting. I'm sure we'll talk more about them because they're crazy dudes too.
Then they're just terrible with money. They're just absolute crap, and they spent so much money on the Berlin premiere. They got the fanciest place with the best orchestra and all this stuff. They spent so much money on having a huge premiere in Berlin. That's how Florence Stoker heard about it. It was so opulent, she saw money. Because when Stoker died, they were essentially broke.
Yeah.
And so she was just like, what? These guys are rich and they're like treading on my IP, like what the hell? I want some cash. And she sues them because of their big opulent premiere. Had it been like lo-fi, she never would have noticed, because she was just, obviously, I'm not going to vilify her for pursuing her husband's rights. She was motivated by money, and she was willing to let unprofitable people just have fun with it. And I actually like that. When creators do that, like a lot of online creators, like Critical Role and stuff, they're so totally cool with it if you do it and you're not making money.
Yeah, and that's it's pretty interesting. So they got too big for their britches.
She's painted really poorly in most videos that talk about her, that she's like a money grubber, and she was like, because she was like this weird kind of flamboyant lady who was all about high society, and she spent all of her husband's money and put them in the poorhouse. I mean, this is the negative portrayal that I saw in multiple videos about this story. Now, I don't know if any of that's true, but the truth is there's tons of pictures of her being super flamboyant in high society, but who's to say that wasn't like their thing? And, I don't know. But she's portrayed poorly, and these guys in Prana are portrayed as idiots too. Yeah.
Well, they're occultists. Like, the whole point of them starting their production company was to make occult films.
Yeah.
And there is this sort of underlying, there's all these like arcane sigils and stuff.
Oh yeah, I love it. Any written thing has all these like angelic script and like satanic sigils and stuff.
And so these guys are, like not Crowley devotees, but something along that. They're part of one of those Gnostic is that the right word? Gnosis. It comes up a lot.
I think Gnostic is the word.
Yeah, they're part of one of those groups, organization, fraternal orders.
Yeah.
And, this is their big, this was their first big outing and their last. Like, they never made another film.
Absolutely. This movie was kind of their big deal, and then it got them in massive legal trouble, and they were running across Europe doing openings in like Belgium and Denmark and all this stuff in places they had yet to be sued. They would open in a new market.
They're like running east, like because the Stokers are in Ireland, right? And so they're Prana's in Germany, and they just flee east.
Yeah, they're just like opening it and I mean, it's a great movie, so obviously people wanted to go see it. And the ultimate kind of culmination of the lawsuits was that they were ordered to pay her money and stuff that they didn't have.
Yeah.
And they kept appealing like ad nauseum. And then ultimately the judge ordered that all copies be destroyed.
Yeah. And so we're lucky, like, not that the copies are in great quality, the ones that we have today, but we're lucky that a few survived because people hid them away.
Yeah.
And it's like when you look through Murnau's filmography, most of the movies are lost.
Yeah.
And that's, because there was sort of a big war that happened. Shortly, not too long after this film. And just a lot of stuff got burned up.
Well, and it is worth mentioning the wars because this film was made just after World War I.
Yeah.
And that, Max Schreck was a World War I German soldier.
Yeah.
He fought in the war and
so was Murnau.
Yeah, so these are some hard dudes.
Yeah. And it comes what I was reading was a lot of the German expressionist filmmakers are World War I veterans, and the darkness that permeates those movies comes a lot from their war experience.
It's really
PTSD,
interesting.
Suffering and untreated in those eras, you would assume.
Yeah, and Adolf Hitler is a World War I veteran. He was a soldier in the First War.
Yeah.
That was part of the whole incitement for the Second World War and his rise to power, how he was talking about how they had betrayed the soldiers and stuff. Anyway, I like how these really grimdark people turned to art.
Yeah.
I like that. That's really cool.
Yeah. And
it's a healthy outlet.
This intra-war period in Germany is an amazing time for art. There's so much that comes out of Berlin in the 1920s period before the Nazis. And then these people all flee because Murnau was gay and the writer Heinrich Galen was Jewish.
Yeah.
So when the Nazis took power, they hightailed it to Hollywood.
Yeah, they just got to get the hell out. I mean, honestly, the 20s were renowned for all kinds of art. This is like when we had the Harlem Renaissance and all this amazing stuff. This was like a global phenomenon. There was like an awakening going on.
It is interesting. I mean, I guess because there's also, it's a time of tremendous economic disparity and extreme poverty and suffering, which is ultimately what leads to the rise of fascism, right?
Yeah.
And that's the same way in America in the Great Depression. But like you said, in those times of real struggle, some of the best art of the century came out.
I'm not going to say that you have to suffer to have great art, but oftentimes suffering leads to great art.
Yeah, it does seem like it. Yeah, definitely.
All right, well, let's go ahead and take a break, and then we'll just dive into this dissection of Nosferatu.
When a young real estate agent is sent to Transylvania to assist a reclusive count in purchasing property in his German town, he finds himself in the clutches of an ancient vampire. The vampire then voyages to Germany to prey on the wife of the captive, leaving death and plague in his wake.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the whole thing. I tried to do a plot synopsis in bullet points. It's just really simple because I'm teaching some writing stuff right now. And so this is what I came up with.
Okay.
A real estate deal gone wrong, a sinister encounter, the unveiling of evil, a deadly journey, a town's fate, a desperate struggle, a confrontation with darkness, a ray of hope.
Ooh, nice. That's very poetic.
I thought it was amusing. I mean, but the thing is the plot beats of Dracula are so defined.
Yeah.
Like, you can't not have the ship journey.
Yeah, it really is. There's sort of, there's three acts, right? Like, there is the journey to the Carpathians, and just how that plays out.
Yeah, Act 1 is amazing. I always loved Act 1.
Yeah. Then there is this sort of race for Harker to get out of the castle and for Dracula to get to where he's going, and then dealing with having the vampire there.
Yeah. What are we gonna do?
Yeah, and those, like, it is really well, like you said, well defined. You have to hit certain beats.
Mm-hmm.
You need the captain needs to lash himself to the steering wheel of the ship.
I still haven't seen that movie that was very recent where it's focused on the voyage.
Last Voyage of the Demeter.
Yeah, I need to watch that.
That movie rules.
Okay.
It's really good, and it's Monster in the House movie, and the voyage is built for that because
you're on a ship.
He picks off the sailors one by one. And so it's just sort of built to be a slasher movie.
That's awesome. I like that someone had that idea.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of these little sections could be entire movies.
Yeah. Oh, in some ways, because the three sections are so distinct from each other, they would almost function better as a trilogy of movies than they do as one disjointed narrative.
Yeah, absolutely. I even think like this could be something that was made into like a Game of Thrones-esque TV show where you have a whole season is the first act. You know, that would be pretty cool. Yeah,
because it plays out the way the book, and we've talked about this on the podcast before. The way the book plays out is through journal entries and correspondence.
It's an epistolary novel.
And clipped articles and things like that.
I actually really love that form.
Yeah.
It's not super popular, but I do love it.
It's an interesting... It gives you sort of a voyeuristic way of experiencing the narrative. Like you're peering into people's lives.
Yeah, and I love how it's like
about it.
Different people's journals, like when you're reading like Mina's journal or like just so many cool things.
Yeah,
it's a good
Dracula's
book.
a good book.
Yeah. That's Stoker. He could write a book.
Yeah, we've gone on at length about that book, I think. So let's talk about this movie. We said already it's directed by F.W. Murnau from a screenplay from Heinrich Gahlin. And then the producers were Enrico Diekmann and Albin Grau.
Okay.
And Grau, like Murnau, was a World War I veteran. And while he was serving on the Eastern Front, he was inspired by the vampire stories of Eastern Europe.
Oh, yeah.
Because you would be out there. And that part of the world, to this day, I think... believes in vampires and stuff like that. Like,
who's to say they're wrong?
Yeah, those people. He was in Serbia, not Romania, but it's very old superstitions linger there, and people told him about local vampires. Like this house is cursed, and the man became a vampire, and he's like, we should make a movie about that.
Yeah, that'd be dope. What if this guy was trying to buy real estate in London?
Yeah. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, you could almost write a comedy. Yeah. Right? I'm sure people have done comedy Draculas.
Oh, yeah. What's it? Dead and Loving It? It's from the Naked Gun people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leslie Nielsen plays Dracula.
Oh, God. Yeah, love him or hate him. That guy's wacky. His movies, I don't tend to enjoy them that much, but I respect the hustle.
Yeah. He made the same movie a bunch of times.
Yeah.
It's like, this one I'm a Dracula, this one I'm a cop. This it's all basically the same humor. Yeah.
Yeah, ridiculous. So one of the things I really liked about in a silent movie, a director is a storyteller in more, I don't know if you could say more ways than in a normal movie.
Yeah.
I would say a modern movie, but it feels that way because there's no dialogue to carry anything.
Yeah.
The music almost blends into the background and you're just flowing. You're like in this flow state. So the director and the way these German expressionist people light and set scenes, we can get to lighting and stuff later, but what I'm getting at is that they use suggestion and hints of violence and things exclusively.
Yeah.
There's no actual violence in this movie.
Yeah.
It's kind of close, but not exactly. And I actually love that sort of thing, that temptation that it tickles your imagination and makes you think about it, like when he's got his hands like over the person, that the shot that inspired the entire Hitchcock stabbing thing,
right?
Like the whole deal. I love that kind of suggestion and subtlety of action in this movie.
Yeah, they have no choice but to be show don't tell, because there's no tell. There's no option. I mean,
there's cards. There's written parts.
What do they call it? They call it intratitles. They're not subtitles because they're not on the bottom of the screen. You have the intratitles, which have quite a bit of text on them.
I think there was a version of this release. I think it was in the 40s using the original Nosferatu, but someone put subtitles and created dialogue for the characters. I believe that is a thing that happened.
There is so many versions of this movie.
I think that's like the 1947 release in London or something.
Yeah, it's... because
I could be full of shit.
The one on Amazon was colorized, so I started watching it and I didn't like it. I ended up doing a 7-day trial to Screambox or some sort of horror movie site. And so I watched one there, and it had all the. It was not colorized. And it had the intratitles changed over to the names from the Stoker book.
Okay, that happened in, I think, that happened, like in the 70s or something like that, where they made one of those.
And then the one that I decided on including in our show notes had the original German intratitles with English translations at the bottom of them.
That's what I watched.
That's the one you watched,
and that was just on YouTube.
Yes, that's where I found it.
And also you can find a scoreless version of it, because the score in that version, the one that we're talking about, which is the most popular, sort of most authentic-ish version.
Yeah.
The score is reconstructed.
Yeah, because the score is lost.
Yeah, so that is a reconstructed score based on fragments of music that were found. The original movie with no score is available in the Creative Commons on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
So you can just watch the whole thing, like an hour and 27 minutes on Wikipedia with no sound.
I looked on Spotify, and there's like 3 or 4 scores for this movie available, so you can just sync it up yourself.
Yeah, this is a perfect thing. If you want to learn how to score films, just score this one.
Yeah.
It's made for it.
It is made for it. I've told you before, but I don't know if I've said it on the podcast. I had a VHS copy of this set to typo negative.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing.
Then that's probably I think that's the most enjoyable version of it that I've seen.
Listening to Peter Steele narrate it, basically.
Well, that's a lot of instrumental stuff, but it is it's more propulsive than some of the scores. The one that I ended up watching, there was a lot of just plunking on the bass strings, the doom 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 doom, and I was just like, this isn't working for me. So there's huge variation in the music this movie gets set to.
Man, if I had more motivation, I would just do a black metal score of this, because it would be...
Just record one?
Just record one. Just play the guitar and write parts to it. That seems like it'd be fun.
Yeah, well, you need another hobby. That's
true. I don't have enough things that I do.
So we're a little off track from the storytelling.
That's fine.
Let's talk about...
So symbolism and imagery, how about that? That's part of storytelling.
Yeah. So this movie, like our last movie, gets sort of... a finger pointed at it for being anti-Semitic. I think unlikely, because the writer of the movie is Jewish.
Yeah, I think so. I think
and the director was gay. These were not Nazi sympathizers.
No. These were guys that would have been in the camps. For real.
They were lucky to make it out of the country.
Absolutely.
And so I don't think that was intentional.
I think there's some casual prejudice, like especially when they refer to like Transylvania and stuff. What does he say? Like a land of like outlaws or travelers and thieves.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's just
Definitely
casual.
Romani racism.
Yeah, absolutely. And in 1922, I don't even think that was considered racist. I just think that was considered common knowledge because they didn't even consider it a negative connotation. They considered it just an observation.
An observation.
Which is, that's how you like fully, it's fully in your culture if you don't recognize it as racism.
I think most of Europe still feels that way about Roma people. There's still room to grow in that regard.
Well, everywhere, but yeah, for sure.
And so what other symbolism?
I mean, we talked about it a little bit ago with regard to all of the writing. Everywhere that there's writing, that's not German.
Yeah,
like
all the arcane symbols.
Yeah, there's like demonic scripts and all this crazy occultist stuff.
That's how Count Orlok and Knock the Renfield how they're communicating in secret with each other is through their arcane script.
I really like this portrayal of Knock, but we'll get to that.
Actually, he's pretty fun.
It seems like the Renfield character is always portrayed really well. Yeah. Like I've never, maybe I've seen one, but it feels like it's almost always really good. Like even the Nick Cage movie Renfield was good.
Yeah, yeah, with Nick Holt. I think that one is a lot of fun. Tom Waits is fun as Renfield.
Yeah,
like he's a fly eating geek.
He's just total weirdo,
and Renfield is always fun. Gosh, what else? There's a seduction element to it, right? With the way the Count controls, first Hawk. I always wanted to use the English names. Hutter, yeah, not Harker, Hutter. Yeah, and then like he's connected to Nina also.
Ellen.
I just know the English names better.
Yeah, he has this psychic connection across space and time. He has magic. Count Orlok is a bit of a wizard of sorts.
Oh, yeah, definitely. He's a wizard. So he's like, oh, she has a lovely neck.
I do love that. That's so cash. Like, imagine like you show someone a picture on your phone or whatever, and it's like you and your wife, and someone goes, "Ooh, she has a lovely neck."
Never showing you my phone again.
Yeah, get away, weirdo. I would just say vampire.
Yeah, but yeah, even though Hutter has the vampire book that he got from the inn, and he thinks to take it with him, right?
Yeah,
he thinks to take it with him, even though he spiked it on the ground like a football several times because he thinks it's so ludicrous. And he doesn't, when he wakes up with the vampire bite on his own neck, he just assumes big mosquitoes.
Yeah.
Those famous Romanian mosquitoes.
I like obviously this is black and white, but they use darkness and light as symbols in and of themselves.
Yeah.
Anything evil, dark as hell.
It is.
Anything good, very bright, like glaringly bright.
Yeah. And the shadow of Orlok's taloned hand is so, like, it's used so well. Like when he comes into Mina's room and you see he reaches up and grabs her heart, and you see he does it with his shadow hand, not with his actual hand. And that's just beautiful storytelling.
Yeah, that's just expert level filmmaking.
Yeah. And a lot of this comes directly from Galen's screenplay.
Okay.
Where he had very precise stage directions in the screenplay.
I wonder if he had a history in the theater.
Well, and he's also a director as well as a writer. He's and he wrote a movie called The Golem, which is another famous sort of proto horror movie.
Okay.
So he is a filmmaker in his own right, and it seems like he had this movie shot in his head before he handed it off.
Okay, that's really cool. So do you want to move on to visuals? Because, this movie is mostly visuals.
Yeah, we're kind of already getting into the visuals.
Yeah, so, like, this whole lighting thing, the German expressionist style is known for having crazy lighting. That's like kind of their thing.
Yeah, it is an intense unreality. It is a reaction against reality.
Yeah, it is a dramatic and often like unsettling or even off-putting amount of light or darkness.
Yeah,
like they just turn it to 11.
Yeah, and the cinematographer is Fritz Arno Wagner and Gunther Krampf, who was uncredited, and the production design is by Albin Grau, the producer. And he's very responsible for the set decoration, the costumes, the look of Count Orlok. Grau had a vision for this movie.
Yeah.
He's a very hands-on producer. He's not just a money guy.
He was one of the sources for negatives down the road later on.
Oh, he saved him himself, even though...
He actually had some stored in a camera.
Yeah.
So not somewhere where it would be found in a warehouse or whatever.
So when the cops and lawyers show up and do their Mar-a-Lago raid on your thing,
they find all your documents in the shitter.
Yeah. Yeah. So good job, Grau, ferreting some stuff away,
because he clearly loved the hell out of this movie, and
it's very personal for I think everyone involved put their real kind of heart and soul into this.
Yeah, the practical effects on Orlok are so good. They stand up. Like, it looks so strong.
Yeah, it's just such an effective makeup. It's not like, it's very severe. Like his nails are probably over an inch long.
Yeah.
A lot of it is just Shrek is a string bean himself.
Yeah.
And so he kind of has a corpse-like figure to begin with. Put the big eyebrows and the nose and the little rat teeth on him, and he just looks like a vampire.
It's like The Shape from Halloween. You don't need complex. You need something that is clean and identifiable and frightening. You don't need it to be crazy.
And this is more true to the book Dracula than Lugosi or Christopher Lee, who were both robust, healthy,
handsome
fit
dudes.
Yeah. Dracula, at least before he comes to London, or the German town in this one, is corpse-like. That's how he's described in the book.
Wisborg or Visborg.
Visborg, yeah.
There we go.
Not London. Yeah. He smells like grave dirt, and he's supposed to be ghastly in the early stages. Famously, that's how the Gary Oldman portrayal's like that.
Yeah, he doesn't become fancy man until London.
Yes, because he's fat off of sailors from the voyage on the Demeter. He's rejuiced himself. Yeah,
he was starving ass in Transylvania.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was talking about this with our friend Ed. Like Dracula before he travels across, on the Demeter, has given up basically.
Yeah,
like, he's just subsisting at this point, and like even in this movie shows this. He has no servants in the castle. There's always this sort of thing in the book where he's like, "Oh, the servants prepared you dinner, and now they've retired to bed," and things like that. But Jonathan never sees any servants because the Count is doing everything.
Yeah.
And you see that when he picks him up in the carriage, it's obviously Count Orlok just in a big hat.
that one, I love that particular shot of Orlok in the carriage.
Yeah. And he brings him up to the castle, rides off in the carriage, runs around, opens the gate, and meets him inside. And it's like he's doing so much to put on the airs of still being a nobleman, despite the fact that he lives in a ruin.
Yeah, he's given up on who he used to be. Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of it, like Forlorn Nandor the Relentless.
Yeah.
I used to be a warlord.
Yeah, Dracula's very much. I mean, well, yeah, Nandor is.
Yeah,
inspired
he's supposed
by
to be Dracula. Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, for whatever reason, whatever it is that gets him interested in moving, kind of gets his spirits back.
Yeah, I wonder what spurred Dracula to contact a real estate agency.
He's like, I've got to get out of this place.
This place sucks.
This unlife is become miserable. And
so now that could be a prequel in the series. Like, what spurred Dracula, and how did he even get the address to write to a London real estate firm?
It is
like, that could be a whole story.
That is one of the only things that I've not ever seen explored. It's one of the only parts of the story I've not seen explored. It's always sort of after he's already done it. He's already written, that he was interested in this property, the Carfax Abbey. It's like, why? What was the thing where he's like, I got to get out of this place?
Or he's like, ooh, that looks really nice.
Yeah.
I bet I could get a good price for my castle and buy that place.
Right? It's because a lot of the stuff that we take for granted it's all late, like his sort of the time-crossed lovers thing that comes from the Coppola movie.
Oh, I love that.
It's not really in the book.
No, it doesn't need to be, though.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that could be very much explored. Interesting. Yeah, that's a whole tangent that I could hypothesize about for a while now.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just sort of talking about how they use the cameras and the angles and the movements, the way that they picked the shots in this movie is really interesting. And it's weird because I've never watched this before.
Yeah.
It felt fresh how they shot this movie.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, wow, this is like really good. And people nowadays have stuff to learn by watching this movie.
Oh yeah.
The way that they shot it, the low angle shots to like emphasize the imposing Orlok, that has been used like a billion times over.
Yeah.
But how they sometimes do like interesting panning shots where you see almost an intentionally distorted background.
Yeah.
How things are not clear. Your eyes aren't supposed to fall on them. And then boom, Orlok in focus, in frame. It's the only thing that's in focus.
Yeah.
It's like really striking.
And there's some real interesting primitive special effects in it, like where they use sort of stop motion's the wrong word, but like where they're shooting frame by frame in order to have Orlok moving things with his telekinesis.
Yeah.
And just, and there's some microscopic photography that had to be a fairly new thing where they're showing like the little nematodes or whatever eating one-celled organisms.
Yeah.
In the professor's laboratory, like that's interesting.
Our Van Harding.
Yes. Legally distinct from Van Helsing. And it's just some really interesting. There's some like double, like where they double exposed it so that there's like gives you the ghostly effect, or people can dissolve like when he dies in the sun. And then if Wikipedia is to believe, this is the first portrayal of a vampire being
dying
killed by
in the sun. Yeah, I find that to be really interesting. And I mean, I don't have any way to disprove that.
Yeah, I mean,
sounds
if
right.
A movie exists before this, it's lost to the war, and we'll never find it. And it's there's some really cool photography. Like there's so many iconic still shots from this movie.
Oh yeah, like the Orlok's shadow as he's walking up the stairs.
Oh yeah,
that might be the most iconic. It's so cool.
Him on the ship in like standing up on the deck with the rigging behind him is very, there's that one. There's the when he comes into Hutter? Yes, Hutter. When he comes into Hutter's room. Yeah, I'll get the German names by the time we're done with the podcast.
Yes, and then promptly forget them.
Yeah, when he comes into Hutter's room, that's a real iconic shot. Yeah, it's just loaded with just beautiful still frames.
Yeah, it's really cool. And
beautiful, ugly still frames.
Yeah, and not in the movie, but related to the movie and the visuals. If you go and you look at all of the different advertisements and bills and things that were created for this movie, and you know, they're all in the Creative Commons at this point.
Yeah,
they're so cool.
Yeah, and that's Albin Grau.
Yeah, Grau is the artist on almost all of the paintings, and it's so good. I love it. It makes me wish I had open skin to get a Grau tattoo.
Oh, of like a Grau Nosferatu.
Yeah, I could get one on my thigh, like big on the side. That would be really cool.
You've got room to.
Yeah,
he's a skinny vampire. You can squeeze him in somewhere.
That's true.
Yeah, I've thought a lot about a Nosferatu tattoo myself.
Yeah.
I've got a spot on the back of my arm that's got to go to a vampire eventually.
Yeah. I mean, you got a bat there, but that could you could say that's Dracula. But
yeah, there needs to be a vampire on
it should be Orlok.
Should it be Orlok? Because I have the Karloff Frankenstein, and so that's always. I just like the more monstrous looking Orlok.
Yeah, I think it should be Orlok because it was first.
Yeah. Okay.
The first in cinema.
That's a good rationale. Okay. Maybe I'll go that way. Yeah. It's that blank spot needs addressing. So normally we talk about the audio, but we don't have anything really to talk about.
It's a silent movie.
Yeah.
The reconstructed score was fine. I didn't love it, but it's not really, that's not Murnau's work.
Yeah, and it's not, I mean, it's like you said, it's a reconstructed score based on the fragments they have. So I don't even think we have really a clear clear way to judge Hans Erdmann's score.
Yeah, this is a reconstruction and attempt to make Erdmann's work live again, but you know, that's fine. I don't think that the score is critical for my enjoyment of this movie.
I was listening to Argyle Goolsby from the band Blitzkid and Calabrese. He did a score for this film, and I was listening to it on the drive over, and it's really good. I enjoyed listening to that.
Nice. You think better than the reconstruction on the YouTube?
Because that's not the version I watched, I don't want to say that.
Okay.
Better than the score on the version that I watched on Screambox or whatever that was.
Yeah. So I guess we can jump into casting. And really, there's only a few performances here that are super important. And obviously, Max Schreck as Count Orlok is the critical one.
Yeah. And he's iconic. I mean, I always say that, right? But it's true. He's a few so iconic.
We like the word iconic is overused, and I think the word epic is overused.
Yeah.
But truly, Orlok is iconic. Him and Bela Lugosi, they are the vampires. It's the ugly vampire and the handsome vampire. Yeah. They're the icons. Everyone else just came after.
Yeah, and his gestures are so strong.
Oh yeah, the physical acting is so good.
Just the way he
with the hands
raises his hand up or holds his hands down, like in the kind of the Edward Scissorhands.
Exactly,
pose.
It's the Edward Scissorhands pose.
It's the Edward Scissorhands silhouette, basically.
Really, yeah.
Like because again, it's this sort of string bean with super long fingers held out, where I'm not cutting myself with these nasty talons.
I love the gaunt appearance with the rat teeth and how he moves his mouth, and he does a lot of eye acting because it's a thing that silent movie people do.
Yeah, close up on the eyes.
Yeah, I really love that.
I find it really interesting that like the classic sort of goth smoky eye comes entirely from film where the cameras were not very good and seeing the eyes was important. Yeah. And so putting real dark smoky makeup around the eyes makes the eyeballs pop out and really jump out at you.
I'm glad it did because I like that look.
It's a cool look. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that Max Schreck did a great job in there, and I mean the whole. I always liked Max Schreck, especially after the Shadow of the Vampire movie.
Yeah,
where they remake and
Willem Dafoe. It's
so good.
Coming soon. That's 2 episodes away.
And we've got Gustav von Wangenheim as Hutter. Is that how you say that?
Wangenheim. Yeah, that's how I would say that. I love this performance too.
Yeah, he feels almost he gives a vibrant aliveness.
He's a jolly chap when he gets there. Like he's silly. He's very happy-go-lucky. He's excited to be on this adventure, and he thinks these colorful Eastern European people are very silly but charming.
Yeah.
And then like he becomes haunted, and
he just falls into despair and madness.
Yeah, and he portrays the arc beautifully. Like, and it reads because again, it's a silent performance, so it can feel like too big in a modern context. But in the milieu he's working in, I think he's actually at the perfect level.
I think it took me about 20 to 30 minutes to really settle into watching a silent film and just
how people act,
accept it.
Yeah.
And I started to really like it.
Yeah. He gives a really beautiful arc of this young, like carefree young man
who gets destroyed.
Yeah. And by the time he gets home, he is so like sad and haunted and traumatized by what he's been through. Yeah. So Gustav von Wangenheim. Yeah. Thomas Hutter.
It's really, really good performance. Beautiful. We've got Greta Schroeder as Ellen
Hunter. Yes. Or Hutter.
Ellen Hutter or Mina.
Yeah. I think again,
good job.
Beautiful performance.
I like it when she's like playing the bewitched version of her.
And it's rather than like the connection to the Count like we have from the Coppola film, she is so in love with her husband that she senses his danger and protects him from afar. And I thought that was really beautiful and magical.
Yeah, it's a really cool portrayal of the character. I think that oftentimes Mina is underserved character in Dracula movies.
Mina and Lucy both get the short shrift. But yeah, I thought this was really good, and I see a lot of her performance in the way Winona Ryder portrays Mina.
Oh,
too.
Yeah, for sure.
I think this was a big influence on them.
So who do you got next?
George H. Schnell as Harding.
Yeah. He's our Helsing figure.
No, he's the Westenberg.
Oh, okay.
He's Lucy's. They've taken all Lucy's suitors and just given her
just one guy.
Yeah, which is too bad. I love the suitors. Like those are some of my favorite characters in the story.
I think it works to combine or condense,
to streamline it and to fit it into a reasonable sort of 90 minutes. And let's just make it a twofer and have Ruth Landshoff as Ruth, aka Lucy.
Yeah.
And they've condensed their role.
It's really minimized in this movie.
Yeah.
Lucy and or Ruth and Harding are kind of minor bit parts.
And basically they're go fetch people. They go and fetch the professor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Ellen is staying with them while Hutter is away.
Yeah. And we got Alexander Granach as Knock.
Yeah, the Renfield.
That is really good portrayal.
It's wild. He gets I don't know if this is the first time that we've seen this, but he gets the angry German mob.
Yeah,
that chases
I
him.
love that scene. The chase scene. It has some physical comedy in it.
Yeah,
but it's just like really, really a fun scene. It's enjoyable.
He does some stunts in it, like he jumps and climbs on things. They're throwing rocks at him, and like they beat the hell out of a scarecrow at some point. Like I think because they think it's him.
I enjoyed that part.
Yeah, and it's again like I think this is probably the first time that this reoccurring trope that Universal Studios goes back to a million times.
The German mob.
The mob chasing the monster. Yeah.
Like with Dracula or with Frankenstein and all that.
Exactly. And I was like, this is like the first time we've seen that. The town mob. It's an oldie but goodie.
It's
like, the iconography of the genre is being established.
So, I mean, that's kind of all I had in my performances section.
Yeah, I mean, because Gustav Botz, who plays Professor Sievers, who's like the Van Helsing, or there's also Professor Bull. They kind of split Van Helsing into two professors. They're very minor. Like
they're just bits.
He does not provide a lot. Either one of them doesn't provide a lot.
Yeah, Helsing in the later Dracula, the famous Dracula movie, is a lot bigger character.
Yeah. You also have someone I thought had a really good performance is the sailor Wolfgang Heinz as Impusa, the first mate of the ship, who's the guy that takes the axe and decides to go down into the hole.
Go after him, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought that was actually a really good, like, it was a muscular, like, tough performance. And again, just real strong physical acting. Like, it's sort of like the way he swings the axe and everything is exaggerated to sell it to the, without sound.
Yeah.
But he seems legit haunted as well. Like,
absolutely.
He looks like we're the last two. We've just thrown our last comrade over the side of this ship.
Mm-hmm.
And I've finally had enough. I'm going to go down there and destroy whatever is killing us.
The ship, the entire ship act, the entire ship thing, I really, really enjoyed. I thought it was really cool.
So let's shout out Max Nimitz as the Impusa captain also. He's when he lashes himself to the ship wheel. That's another great performance.
Yeah, a classic scene.
Yeah. And that's it.
Yeah, so you want to go ahead and give us your personal highlight?
My personal highlight kind of is always the carriage ride through the Carpathians.
Okay, that's a strong choice.
Yeah, and I can stretch it out to make it also just the introduction to the castle and the introduction to the Count, because they kind of lean in together. That sort of first night of him riding the carriage there, and then having his first meal in the castle. That's my favorite part of the movie. That's when I'm the most into it. And that's one of my favorite parts of the book, and it's one of my favorite parts of the Coppola movie. It's like it's consistently one of my favorite parts of this story.
Okay, that makes sense. I really like that in the Coppola movie. That's probably one of my favorite bits.
When Hutter is cutting the bread and he slices his thumb, and Orlok just gets right on and sucks his thumb real quick.
Oh God,
it would be so profoundly unnerving to have an old man suck your thumb by surprise.
Bro.
Like, you're like, okay, it's your castle and we're in your country. Your customs are different. Normally, when we cut ourselves, we suck our own thumb. Like, it's not, but I'm your guest.
I guess.
Yeah. And it's just, your precious blood, and then sucks onto his thumb. So funny. And it's a clear indication something's off.
Yeah,
here.
Something is wrong.
What about you? What's your personal highlight?
So, I mean, if you're going with an entire section of the movie.
No, a sequence.
So, I mean, my favorite sequence is basically, you talked about it. It's the nearing the end of the ship scene. Ooh. When the first mate goes down there with the axe and he chops the boards and everything. And specifically, the very moment that I love the best is when Count Orlok rises up out of the coffin, and it's like he's on a plank or he's hovering up. And it's done with that expressionist lighting where it's so dark.
Yeah.
You only see his pale face and the pale hands in this dark scene. And Shrek just gives this most menacing look. The acting from the eyes and the whole deal. It's just that particular moment when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, that's my highlight right there.
It's so
It
good.
was so good.
And often imitated, right? So again, this is the first time we've seen that the vampire
rises
come
up
rigid out of the coffin like that.
I love it. That's my favorite part of the movie. Easily.
Gorgeous. I second that. That's beautiful.
So what worked for you?
We're kind of talking about this, the aesthetics. This is like, I was watching this movie and it is aesthetically so similar to the Universal horror movies that are about to kind of, or have just started coming out. I think that the first adaptation of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde predates this by a little bit. And Phantom of the Opera comes several years later. This is like the handoff from German Expressionism to Gothic horror. Like it's where the baton gets passed over. And it's just superb, visually superb movie. And I think the cast is really strong, like, you know, particularly Shrek, but a lot of the people that we've mentioned give really strong performances that they're not naturalistic by our modern standards, but they read authentically, like, and the characters have arcs and
for sure.
And there's some real high level acting happening in this movie. What about you? What worked for you?
So I zoomed in on more specific moments in the movies rather than saying I like the visuals and stuff, because I consider that to be sort of a given. I really like how Shrek portrayed Orlok and the character of Orlok in general. Yeah. I think that this becomes the template for an entire type of vampire. Yeah. The unpretty vampire. Yeah. I absolutely love it. He's completely sinister. Specifically, like when he's walking up the stairs and his silhouette is cast on the wall with that exaggerated lighting. Yeah. It's so iconic. It's so cool looking. Yeah. It's like everything about it is just excellent.
That is still creepy. 100 years later, that still works. That shadow coming up the wall is scary.
Yeah, it's awesome. And then specifically another moment that I almost chose for my highlight, but it just couldn't beat that ship scene, was Orlok's death.
Oh yeah.
I love the son, you know, he is held there by the lady. She kind of sacrifices herself, and then he holds this dramatic pose in the light, and then he fades away, and then it cuts, and all you see is smoldering ashes on the floor. Yeah. It was extremely effective, and I also really liked, in the wake of his destruction, all of the people that he had mesmerized, they all woke up from it. And Nock is like, Master is gone, or whatever. I really enjoyed that entire sequence. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, and it's beautiful, and it's proper sad.
Yeah, you know, for sure.
Because she sacrificed herself. That was what it said in the book, that a maid with a pure heart, if she could hold the Nosferatu until the cock crowed or till the sun came up, that would be his undoing. And she sacrificed herself. She sent Hutter away. And it's beautiful. I think that's a really great scene too, and a cool effect. Like,
it looked really neat.
I'm not really sure how they did that fade out with the technology they had.
Just magic. Literally,
movie magic.
Shrek was a vampire,
and it was a movie produced by wizards.
Yeah,
that's plausible.
So, what didn't work for you?
What didn't work for me? The movie kind of loses its narrative momentum in the third act. I felt like, even though it's a lot of fun, I think the Nock escape and sort of running around town feels like a real detour when the movie kind of needs to be focused more. But I mean, that's it. That's actually the only criticism that I had. What about you?
So, I mean, it's slow, but that's the format. That it is what it is. I think for a modern audience, this is not an easy movie to watch. Because we're so accustomed to being constantly engaged audio and visual, and this has slow moments, and I don't truly consider that a problem with the movie, but I think it's a valid criticism for modern audiences.
Yeah.
And I agree with you that it loses momentum. It loses some steam after a very strong set of scenes, one after another. In the end, it kind of peters out. Like it doesn't finish strong and triumphant. I think like the later Dracula movies have better endings than this. It was visually arresting and striking. Sometimes it was really good. Mm-hmm. Most of the time it was really good. But sometimes it's so bright, it's literally distorted on the screen.
I do wonder if some of that just comes down to how the film has aged poorly.
It could be that it's literally distortion from age, but some of it is so bright, you literally lose the image and there's just patches of white.
Yeah.
But those are so minor. I don't have massive criticisms.
Okay.
So what's your final thought? Your rating?
My final thought is this is the granddaddy of the whole gothic horror genre. It's one of the most important films probably ever made. It was a low budget German film made for a German audience, and it has just an incredible legacy. Like, it has lived on for a century with good reason.
I think the question, because I'm with you, the question we're really asking, is it perfect?
No, I don't think it's perfect. I don't think it's flawless, but I think it's exceptional. And so I gave it 4 stars.
All right, so I came down to the same thing. Okay. I thought to myself, it is super niche. It's only for some people, which normally I default to a 3.
Right. I wondered what you would do there.
It's the template. It's the vampire template.
Yeah.
Like, everything copies Nosferatu. It's horror movie. It's gothic. It's gothic noir. It's the goth look in pop culture. It's like, Nosferatu is something special.
It is a really exceptional, important film.
And so for the fact that you can't just have anybody watch this and love it, it's dinged a star. And maybe a little bit of that losing of momentum in the third act.
Yeah.
It's not quite perfect, but it's a 4.9.
Yeah, it's way up there. I like that.
It's like the best 4-point movie.
Yeah, I think if you are a fan of film, if you're a fan of horror, if you're a fan of vampires,
anything spooky,
this is a must watch.
Absolutely. It's really good.
If you're a student of any of these things.
And it's Rotten Tomatoes has it at 97%, but then Letterboxd has it at 3.9, and IMDb has it at 7.8.
Yeah,
so we're in there.
We're in the ballpark.
You know, I wonder what that 97% is all about, but that's just film critic romanticism.
Yeah, probably, because if you're writing a review about Nosferatu, it's not going to be a scathing takedown of this
like, look at this
revered
shit.
Yeah, revered. There's not even any words.
Then the music sucks.
Yeah. No, if you're writing a review or something right now at this point in time, you are writing a retrospective on how great the movie is. So I think that's why that Rotten Tomatoes score is so high.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
I thought one more Orlok moment, because I thought maybe you were going to talk about this.
Okay.
And I don't know when else we're going to talk about it, because we're almost at the end. When he's carrying his coffins.
Oh yeah.
I love that, of just this.
He's so blue collar.
He's carrying just the one, right? Because he's going to let them unload the rest of the ship, but he needs to get one into the house so he can get to bed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's probably just an empty balsa wood box, I assume, so that he can carry it that way.
Yeah.
But there's something about this skeletal man walking around with a coffin, which coffins are fucking heavy. They're extremely heavy. And he's so casually carrying it, and he just looks weird and awkward, but not stressed at all. It looks like it couldn't be lighter. And I think that's really effective to show how powerful he is. And so just a cool moment we forgot to talk about.
Yeah, that is really cool. Yeah. All right, let's take a break, and then we'll come back with the Vault of Darkness.
Before we delve into the Vault of Darkness, we ask that all initiates of the cult follow us on your favorite social media platforms at Nightshade Cult.
If you've enjoyed this content, help us grow the cult by sharing it with like-minded people and leave us a review wherever you listen.
Do you have any dark tidings before we get into the vault?
I mean, nothing really. The whole Cure album is out.
Oh, it's good.
It's good. It's very
really
good. I mean, that could have been from the vault, but I've already talked about the 2 pre-release tracks in previous episodes. So, yeah, it's super good. Go listen. If you haven't listened, it's really worth it.
Yeah, surprisingly good. Like I always say with an older artist like that, you just want them to not embarrass themselves.
Yeah.
This is well beyond that. Like, this is their best album since probably the mid-90s.
Yeah, I think Robert is really channeling it's a different kind of macabre energy.
Mm-hmm. But it's recognizable. There is, you pointed out that it's got some faith-like elements. There's some disintegration-like elements to it. Yeah, very good.
I really enjoyed it.
I was just going to say, because we had the Godzilla Fest in Tokyo happened
nice.
earlier this month, and it got announced officially. Takashi Yamazaki, director of Godzilla -1, is coming back to direct a sequel. And he was the writer, director, and special effects director of that previous movie, and he is reprising all of those roles for this one.
Wow.
This
Godzilla +1.
Yeah, Godzilla +1. It's a no-brainer. That movie won an Academy Award. It's a great film, and I'm really looking forward to this, what he does next.
Glad to hear it.
And he clearly left it open for another movie.
I think that's key for a good monster flick.
Yeah, you want to know the monster is defeated, but it can come back.
Yeah, it's possible.
If you want more is available. All right, what are you pulling out of the vault?
So I was really searching my mind as to what to do for this one because it's a 1922 German expressionist silent film. I have nothing related unless I go back to the well of vampire games and books and things. But I've talked.
You've recommended a lot of vampire things, so you don't have that many left.
I mean, there are more. There are more vampire books I have read and series that I like, but I'm going to save those because we will inevitably do more vampire stuff.
Of course.
Instead, I watched a YouTube video the other day, and I found myself thinking, I look forward to this every single time.
Okay.
And so I wanted to recommend the channel to everybody, and I wasn't sure if I'd recommended this channel before, so I did a Control F of all my old notes, which I keep.
Smart.
And no, I haven't. It is a YouTube channel called Banger TV.
Okay.
Banger TV is they have a 2-word description called all metal.
Oh, okay.
And they give weekly metal album reviews, Fridays and Tuesdays. They have multiple hosts. They have original interviews, and this is literally the copy from their YouTube channel.
Okay.
Original interviews and documentaries from the makers of Headbanger's Journey and Metal Evolution, which are like metal-based YouTube series and dramas. It's pretty cool. But every single, and it's a pretty medium-sized YouTube channel. They have 358,000 subs. Every month, there's a recurring series called Metal Monthly. The host named Blaine, he goes through, he does a quick list of every major kind of big-name metal band. And when I say big-name metal band, it's only big name if you're a metalhead. Like, he does not do big previews for anything as big as something like Black Braid or Panopticon or anything like that. That's too big.
Those mainstream.
Yeah,
bands.
Those are mainstream. So he goes and does deep cuts. He calls it the best of the underground, where he takes 5 albums, usually 4 pretty serious black death, doom, grind, thrash, whatever, metal. And then he has the 5th one is the Palette palate cleanse of the month, and it's usually like power metal or classic heavy metal with usually clean singing and stuff. And I add so many albums and artists to I use YouTube Music, but it's just Spotify, to my rotation via this one guy and this show. Like, I discover so much music via Blaine and Metal Monthly. It's amazing. And then also, since I follow them and I watch their videos regularly, they come up in the algorithm a lot. And their series Overkill Reviews, which is their Friday and Tuesday review show with many different hosts, it will review everything from Metallica's last album they reviewed when it came out, to something mid-range, all the way to obscure, really niche things that I've never heard of. And all of the different researchers and presenters, they go deep. Like, I love these reviews because they're like, anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes, just going hard, learning and playing it. It's just awesome. If you're interested in heavy music in any way, Banger TV is worth checking out.
Do they play clips?
I think they play clips and just get demonetized. Okay. I think they're just okay with that on those shows. Yeah. They notoriously, they say it in like every view, support us on Patreon. That's the only way we keep going.
Right. Because playing the music makes it so they can't get any money.
Yeah. So they're, and you can, basically they want you to join their Patreon, but I think you can also join on their YouTube, which is basically like a Patreon YouTube feature.
Just a way to support them.
Yeah. Anyway, I like Banger TV. I watch it all the time. I mean, I watch it at least every single episode of Metal Monthly. I don't miss one.
Okay.
I literally have never missed one since I discovered it.
Like a podcast version of this? Or?
So Blaine does, it's not a podcast. He does a Twitch stream where he does all his album research and pre-listens and selects the 5 best of the underground. He does it all on Twitch. So you could watch or listen along as a VOD with the Twitch app. No problem. But yeah, so check out Banger TV. What are you pulling out of the vault?
I am going to pull out, if you liked this movie, I'm going to go a little further back in the German expressionist genre. Older, yeah. I'm going to go back, this is 22, I'm going to go back 2 years to The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Okay. Which is directed by Robert Vine. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Written by Hans Janowitz and Karl Mayer. It's kind of, if Nosferatu is the classic vampire, like the prototypical vampire film, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is the prototypical zombie film. And I mean that in the pre-Romero style, not Living Dead zombie, but a mind-controlled person that's doing the bidding of a master sort of zombie film. And it's one of those movies, the somnambulist, the brainwashed victim is played by Conrad Veidt, who came within a hair's breadth of playing Nosferatu. Ooh. And you've seen images of him in this movie on Bauhaus t-shirts, and like it's one of those very iconic German expressionist films. And when you watch it, you're like, oh, Tim Burton steals this, Rob Zombie steals this. Like, you just see all of the people that have been influenced by this film when you watch it.
Nice.
And so,
how's the music?
How's the music? Depends on the version you get. Just like anything else. I don't know if it has I don't think it has as many different variations as Nosferatu does. Maybe there is an accepted score to Caligari. Yeah, I'm not well enough informed to say that specifically. But I think if you liked Nosferatu, this would be my next stop in I want to watch more of these movies.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, so The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari from 1920. Definitely worth checking out.
We'd like to thank you for joining the Nightshade Cult.
Until we meet again, we're wishing you unpleasant dreams.